How's it going? We're going to talk a little bit about Kate Steinley's case today. It's December 5th, and I'm using my really crappy camera again just because it's more convenient at the moment. So we'll start with meme of the day. This one's hilarious. If we can see that, can anyone Photoshop this Civic to be black? Thanks. Shout out to Liberty Memes on that one. That meme was hilarious. Gave me a good laugh today. Anyway, so a lot of stuff in the news about Kate Steinle. Um, that verdict was rendered, and Garcia Zarata, he was acquitted of looked like all charges besides he was wrongful possession of a felony, a felon in possession of a firearm, and there may have been one other one I can't remember, but basically 6 months with time and served, and the guy's out. Which, like most people, feel like it's pretty ridiculous, but I take a little different approach. But anyways, we can go over some of the facts. So July 1st, 2015 is when this happened. Supposedly, this Garcia Zarata um, was around this is Pier 14. That's where Kate Steinle and her father were walking. Sorry, my dog's he likes to play. But apparently, that's where they were walking. Pier 14. Garcia Zarata was um, apparently, I guess he was high on some kind of sleeping pills that he found in a dumpster, which that seems really fishy to me. Like, who takes pills that they find in a dumpster? I don't know if they're marked. That was one of my questions. Like, hey, were these things marked? You just dump some pills in your body, and we'll see what happens. Let's ride this train. And anyway, so he was apparently inebriated. Um, he'd been kicked out of the states, I believe, it was 5 times, and he was on parole in Texas, but he'd crossed the border in Arizona, Texas, and for sure those two places he's crossed the border, but 5 times, and he was a parolee in Texas. Anyway, so apparently he sits down while he's inebriated, finds this weapon, which also happens to be a weapon that is a BLM Rangers weapon that was stolen a number of weeks before that. Anyway, supposedly it's in a cloth. He grabs it. For some reason, grabs it, puts his finger on the trigger, and squeezes one off accidentally. And the bullet, according to the prosecution, well, the bullet does hit Kate Steinle, but according to the prosecution, a straight line hits Kate Steinle. That's one of the problems with their case is that they claimed that this bullet just went straight in the back of Kate Steinle's head or hit her in the aorta. Um, however, what the forensics team there, the investigators and the defense attorney were able to prove was that, or according to the jury and from the evidence there, was that it was a ricochet. Um, when you have an expert witness like that that comes and says, hey, there's a ricochet, and here's the thing that gets me. Okay, let me back up just a second here. This guy's guilty of sin. Something should have happened to this guy. But the prosecution, one, you can blame the jury on this one. They are a bunch of like millennials, and maybe they're trying to make a statement. But the prosecution also has a say in jury selection. What the hell are they doing? Two, the prosecution's had, what is it, number of almost 2 years or a year and a half or whatever it is to put this thing together. Of course, you're all gathering evidence, but every time I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I know a little bit about law enforcement. Every question you ask, it's even more so in the courtroom. You should know the answer of your story should be locked tight. You rehearse this a number of times, knowing what plausible questions, what the plausible defenses are against it. So it didn't make any sense to me that these guys are going after the first degree murder, or I guess it came in the trial. It was originally second degree murder, and that's how they should have kept it. But I guess that was a possibility, and so was manslaughter, which they didn't get. But I think their error in getting any of those was the fact that they decided to use that straight bullet theory and say that he purposely shot her, where in fact, it seemed like the experts. I won't say in fact. I mean, he could have, but the experts, they had expert witness, and they had the on the crime scene investigators there, or the investigators that were working the crime scene, discovering the ricochet marks, and then the expert, ballistics expert, or the firearms expert and ballistics expert testifying that there was a ricochet and that the wounds, I believe maybe it was the coroner, somebody else testified, the wounds were consistent with a ricochet, that the bullet has already been deformed and it went into her. So that right there kind of like punched the prosecution's case out the window, besides the fact that Kate Steinie's dead. So while I blame the jury and this guy should have been done, should have been delivered, I blame the prosecution a lot. This guy should have been second-degree murder, if not even that. He should have been found guilty of, involuntary manslaughter or something. But anyway, that was a pretty, this video is a little off shot, but I've got a lot of questions about this Kayla Steinie thing, and a lot of people are questioning the justice system, which I don't blame that. I always say, don't hate the player, hate the game, or don't hate the game, what was it? Don't hate the player, hate the game. In this case, don't hate the game, but hate the players. Prosecution botched this. They probably thought it was a slam dunk, but they botched it, and this guy, hopefully the Department of Justice and Jeff Sessions will not correct it in those terms, but get this guy out of the country, and serve some sort of form of justice towards him, and hopefully the Case Steinie's family. I know it must be hard, and I hope that nobody should ever have any of their loved ones perish, especially if you're a father and having your daughter's life taken. I could only imagine, and my heart goes out to them. But I think it's a failure of the prosecutors and a number of accords, and obviously it's indicative of the political climate in that area of the country. And it's kind of a sad state of affairs. Anyway, till the next video, talk to you later. Bye.